So I wanted some people to find out a little bit more about you, a little bit more about your book, which is fab, and a bit more about, and some tools and stuff around some of the things that we've worked on in the guided transformations. So should we start off, and what can we change in relationships when things aren't quite showing up the way we want to, and what that looks like, and 6 steps. Our next class is 6 steps. So so let's start off with a little bit about you and how you got to writing the book Beauty in the Breakup.
Yes, well, when I first found Access, I had this feeling that my relationship was not everything I wanted it to be, but I wasn't willing to get divorced, number one. I wasn't willing to look at that at all. And I used the tools to try to make my relationship better, to fix it.
Yes.
Fix it, like Band-Aids. And you know, when you put so many Band-Aids on and eventually the thing falls apart.
You look like a mummy.
And I remember, oh my gosh, there were so many wedgies that Gary and Dane used to give me. Well, they'd say it in the class, but I knew it was a wedgie for me. Like, the only reason to be married is for sex. And I was like, oh shit.
Is that what they said?
It's like, you can do everything else. You know, you can create businesses and you can do all kinds of things, like you can create partnership, but yeah, they were saying
that's funny.
that's the one thing, you know, you're not supposed to do outside of a marriage. So those areas where if that's not working, what other questions can you ask? What other possibilities are there? And I don't, oh, there were just so many things. And when they were saying, you know, don't fix something that's broken, do something different. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to leave the relationship, you need to break up or get divorced, but you need to do something different, not keep doing the same thing and try to make it work, which is what a lot of people do.
Well, that's what, isn't that what Einstein says? What's it? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a new, different result. So
here's a really subtle difference. People try to make the relationship work. And if you even just look at those words, try to make the relationship work, you're creating work instead of what would make the relationship work for us. Just a subtle change.
Wow.
And yet asking that question is doing something different, and it opens up different possibilities that you've never considered before.
And it's not about leaving, isn't it? I mean, that was what really came through for me in the last class. It's not just about deciding, okay, I'm gone, because there are there's other options, isn't there? There's other places of beauty. That's what I loved about the book, is beauty in the breakup, is that it looks at it from a different perspective.
And the place where people go, I'm gone, I'm out of here, is the back door. So we look at that in the book, Beauty in the Breakup. We look at the back door and closing the back door. So when a relationship isn't working, you don't just run out the back door. If you were to actually commit to you and to your life and close the back door, you know, what would you create with the person in your life? And if it wasn't working, could you go out the front door?
Wow. Yep.
And how different would that be?
It's just looking at it from such a different perspective, isn't it? And those are some of the things that we looked at. It's about not running away, isn't it? It's just such a different way of looking at it. It's not giving up.
Yeah. And I get that it takes a huge amount of courage. You know, Simone and Brendan say the same thing about their relationship done different classes, that it takes a huge amount of courage to look at this area. It's really filled with so much judgment and doing things the way everybody else does, and
Yeah.
finding your way and finding what's true for you is just a very different space. So their classes are more about creating the relationship, and this is more about unwinding from the relationship and creating a relationship with yourself so that you can then be in your relationship or, create a new one.
And the lovely thing there is that the relationship actually, and I know we've looked at mainly as relationships, but it can be any situation that you're in where you feel like you need to unwind and look at things in a different way. Could be a job, it could be family, it could be all sorts of places where there's a relationship of kinds, of sorts.
Absolutely. I mean, right now I'm living with my daughter who's a young adult, and there are times when we both need our own space, and she needs to do her thing to have her, and I need to do my thing to have me. And it doesn't mean, that's it, we're done. Move out, although she is looking for her first apartment. But it's knowing when you need to take care of yourself and having that clarity and building those muscles to know what's true for you, to move forward towards what it is that you'd like to create, and not just be focused on everybody else's needs and wants. That's what most relationships are about. I mean, in my life, it was always about what they want, what they need, and deal with that. And then eventually maybe I'll have some space for myself. But by that point, I didn't even know what I wanted anymore.
About keeping the peace, keeping everyone happy, kind of doing what everyone else requires. And as you say, somewhere you'd fit into that, maybe one day, somewhere.
Maybe one day. But then you have to dig yourself out, because if someone were to ask you, what is it that you desire? Who are you? What have you come here to be? Most of us are like, I have no idea.
Exactly. And so you've been a certified facilitator for 18 years, is that right?
16
years. Mm-hmm. And what would you say in those 16 years, or through this process of looking at different relationships, writing the book, doing the classes we're doing now with guided transformation, what would be a tool that really stands out for you, that would be something that you could share with everyone to, like, if you were in a relationship and you were looking at what is one thing that I could change or choose tomorrow that might be different, what would pop for you?
Well, throughout my relationship, and actually we were both facilitators for 5 years before I chose to leave the relationship. And the thing that really helped the most was running bars, either on each other or getting our bars run when we were having an upset, because it totally took out the emotion and it gave us space to then come back to and look at whatever it is that we needed to work through with.
It's amazing. Yeah. That is amazing, because actually, if I'm thinking about now, me and my husband, if we're having a bit of a grumpy moment, like the last thing I actually want to do is have his hands on my head. And I'm thinking, if you could just get past that, run your bars, it will absolutely. That's so brilliant.
Yeah. I remember when we were cleaning out the garage, we had lived in this house for 10 years and we were selling it and separating, and there was so much stuff. And I would just look at it and all the memories and all the everything, and I'd get dizzy, like I was gonna just collapse from the energy of it all. And he would say, let me run your bars. Or I'd say, can you run my bars or whatever. And then we do that and come back, and then we could get through some of it and just keep going.
And now you've got a different relationship with him, don't you? But it's not that you've lost everything that you had in your 5 years together. What I'm getting is that when you look at different ways of looking at the beauty of where you can do any kind of breakup, whether it's finding more of you, or finding a way to make that separation a bit more ease, or finding a way to change that space of where it's uncomfortable and get back together again. It doesn't have to be a breakup. But when you're in that space, it literally can create a different way forward for you, if there's kids involved in a marriage, if there's family involved, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, it's interesting. Once you make that separation and you start to choose to have more of you, you let go of trying to get them to choose greater. And you just allow them to choose what they're going to choose. And it's such a relief in a way to allow them to choose what they're going to choose, because that was part of what wasn't working in the first place.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we were married 20 years. So the last 5, we used the access tools. And I would say without the access tools, we wouldn't have been married those last 5 years.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So, so what else is there that, if you had to think about where to go, like the thing that stood out for me was, should I stay or should I go? We've done a few calls on that. And that's not a question that has a conclusion. That's a question that's absolutely is a question. So give us one more thing. Should I stay or should I go? What is one thing you could look at before you jumped in the bandwagon and just decided that this is done, or ran out the back door?
Yes, exactly. Well, it's really getting a sense of what your choices are creating. And this is sometimes hard to look at. So you need to lower your barriers. You need to really be honest with yourself. And for some people that's difficult, which is part of why I created the guided transformation, is to go through all these steps together or as a private transformation. But the thing that really, really made a difference for me was when I was willing to ask the question and look at the energy of, if I choose this, if I choose to leave, what will that create for me, for my kids, and for him in the next 5 years? And I remember, like, I would ask it a lot, but I wasn't necessarily willing to receive the information. And I do remember the time when I was actually willing. Like, you have to have your barriers down. And I remember driving from San Francisco over the Golden Gate Bridge and into Marin, where I live now. And I was asking this question, and it was like the sound of music, so expansive. And I was laughing and giggling, and I was like, oh my God, is it possible that getting divorced can create that? And that if I stayed, what would our lives be like in 5 years? And it was so crushingly heavy. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe, like, you can't deny your awareness when you're willing to really be vulnerable with it. You can't deny it. And it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to just go right home and choose it. I mean, I went home thinking that I was going to choose it, but I saw my kids and I started to contract down. And I just knew that at some point when I was ready, I would be able to make the choice, because I knew what that choice would create.
And absolutely. And that's, that really jumped out for me when I did the guided transformation with you, is that there's nothing in this. It's all around supporting you to be in a space where you are learning to be more vulnerable, or building that muscle of barriers down, vulnerability, and really getting away from hiding from issues that are in your relationships that you can change them, whatever the outcome might be. And those are just two of the tools. But for me, that really stood out for me. It's like after those 6 days, it was absolutely brilliant. It was really
And
great.
it's interesting when you do that, and when you build that muscle, it also creates a space where you can create more money, your business prospers, your other connections with other people can be deeper and more nurturing. It's really amazing how it touches every facet of your living.
Well, everything flows. We were having a brief chat the other day when I spoke about a friend of mine that said that they're paralyzed in their relationship. And what you're talking about there, if you just shift that, then you can have more flow. You know, that's absolutely possible.
Mm-hmm.
So would you like to, should we share a little bit about the classes coming up? So often, twice a month, we do 1 hour Zoom calls, which are really brilliant. And those are really around, how do I know, should I stay or should I go? And that's almost an intro to the class, but it's, you can choose it on its own. It's just got lovely information, doesn't it? Give me one sentence about what that looks like, that class, and what shows up for you in those. I've been on
So
a couple
should I
of them. They're
stay?
great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really looking at, you know, where you give your awareness away and where you're looking for other people to validate you or to tell you what to do. And that doesn't really work.
Yeah,
So it's about empowering you to know what you know and be willing to choose and make mistakes. Because either way, you make a mistake or you choose greater, either way, your life gets greater because you get more awareness.
And then tell us about the guided transformation, because that's just such a beautiful process.
I'll show you
I
the
will
book,
tell you, yes.
Beauty in the Breakup. So it's based on this book. It's sort of our book club, but because it goes so much deeper than just reading it, we've called it guided transformation, and we really guide you, or I facilitate you through the 6 steps, which are unwinding, dissolving past traumas. Third step is navigation for clarity, so learning your navigation system. Then breaking through barriers. Step 5 is conscious creation, the pleasure of living. And step 6 is how to maintain it all.
Wow. Yeah, and it's such an awesome 6 days. So the way we do it is we've broken it up over 2 weeks. It's an hour a day for 6 days. And each day we do one of those steps. And it gives you the day after to actually so much, builds almost like a community of the people that have been on the class. And the day after, there's so much that's transmuted, and people come back with incredible questions and insights, and then able to get facilitation on that with you, which has really been so phenomenal. And I wanted to say something else about that. And 13 different tools. So that's what we'll get in those 6 days, 13 tools as well. It's absolutely brilliant.
Well, thank you, Debbie.
It's such a pleasure. I really have fun. You know that this is the class I really enjoy doing with you. So
I love facilitating it. I get so much out of it. It's sort of like when you do the money workbook and you do it again and you do it again and you do it again. And actually, I've since my divorce 10 years ago, I've been through a couple of longer term relationships and breakups, and I've gone back to my book and whatever. I love the way it's set up. It so works for me, because if you're in a past, you know, trauma issue, you just use the tools that are in step 2. And if you just have no idea of what you want next, you use the tools in step 3. So it's just really configured for ease instead of being overwhelmed with, you know, hundreds of possibilities and you don't know how to, you know, take one step.
Absolutely. And we shouldn't forget that actually if the class is not what you're feeling like or not drawn to, then the book's available to purchase, isn't it? So,
Mhm.
you know, it's such a contribution to relationships this for me, no matter where you are. You know, I have so much I wish I'd known when I separated from my daughter's husband, of dad, and I've used so much of it now in my marriage with my current husband. So
Yeah, and you know, somebody else said that they had divorced 10 years previous and were in a new relationship and took the class last month, and she said that it facilitated so much. So we don't
absolutely.
realize how much baggage we have from old
Yeah,
relationships
yeah,
and even family, even if it's not a marriage.
exactly.
There's baggage, and you know, 6 quick steps and you can let go of it and get
And it
total
really can be
clarity.
different. Absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm so glad. And I'll pop some links in, and yeah, thank you. We'll be starting on Tuesday. So if you'd like to join us, I invite you to join us. Otherwise, the book's available. Otherwise, just follow Julie. She's got lovely page. She's got lovely stuff that's on her energy pages. So I'll pop some links in here. And if you'd like to know more, then it's all available.
And don't be afraid, be scary.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, thank you so much, Julie. We'll chat to you soon. Take
Okay.
care. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.